Oh, okay. Yay! Hello, ladies. We are here today. I've got Jen with me, and I'm super excited to share her story. It is an honor to have her. We actually connected in a woman's entrepreneur group and got on a Zoom. We had so much in common, and I'm really excited to share her story. Well, I'm excited for her to share her story with you guys and kind of where she started. So, before we do that, give us a little rundown who you are. She's also a mama, and she's it's snowing where she is. I saw her Insta stories this morning, and I'm like, oh my gosh, snow! And here we are. It's like 65 degrees in Texas, so totally
Oh my
different.
gosh, yeah, you're lucky.
So give us
Oh,
a
we're just about
rundown.
freezing here.
Yeah.
Yes, welcome. So, I am a holistic nutritionist and I am a women's hormone health coach. And I basically help women who are struggling with symptoms of hormonal imbalances like PMS issues, weight issues, energy issues, hair, menstrual cycle issues, to balance their hormones naturally through nutrition and lifestyle so that they can live comfortably, confidently, and happily in their bodies through all stages of womanhood. And I got started on this journey because I myself have a hormonal imbalance, and it's something that I have struggled with since I was 13. And I went through all the what I call traditional outlets of going to my doctor and going to all the specialists and having all the tests done and all the blood work and all the ultrasounds and all of that. And I always got the frustrating answer of, this is normal. Here's your birth control pill.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was 29 when I was offered what I call the make or break solution. And at the time I had already had my daughter, which had been a journey of its own, because by the time I got around to starting a family, I was now looking at infertility, because I had been ignored for so long with all of the hormones and the symptoms I was experiencing. But I was 29 and I was finally seeing a specialist who believed that what I was going through was real, which was something I'd never had before. I've literally had doctors tell me, go home and take a Tylenol, even though I'm standing in an emergency room, not looking my best. I obviously wouldn't have been there if a Tylenol would have worked.
Yeah.
And I have had doctors tell me, everything's fine, go home, stop wasting my time. It was an awful experience, honestly. So the make or break was really when I was 29 years old and I had a doctor say to me, you have PCOS, you have endometriosis, you're also dealing with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and your options are, I can put you on birth control or I can put you in medical menopause. And I remember thinking, I'm 29 years old.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that I either have to feel like I'm 14 again, which I'd never go back to feeling like that if I had a choice. I didn't like it then. I don't want to do it
No
now.
one wants to go back there.
Yeah. Or in the prime of my life, you're telling me I have to feel 30 years older. And now I have to look at and be concerned about osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease and all of the things that come with a woman aging. And I remember thinking, how is this a solution? How is this acceptable? And I know that I'm not the only woman who struggles with hormone imbalances. And, for my journey, it was menstrual. But for women, a hormonal imbalance can look like a lot of different things. It can be extreme fatigue. It can be difficulty losing weight. It can be fat retention. It can be resistant fat. It can be mood swings and PMS. It can be acne. It can be your hair falling out. It's all these things. It can even be things like autoimmune or a low immune system. And so all of these come back to sort of that root underlying issue of hormone dictations of what's happening in your body. And because our hormones are basically those messengers that tell your body how to act every day, how to think, how to feel, what to eat. And so as a woman, knowing that we go through so many huge hormonal shifts, we've got our puberty, we've got, like our menstrual, then we've got pre-baby, pregnancy, post-baby, and essentially we're post-baby for the rest of our lives. But then we also have perimenopause and we have menopause. And so we have significant changes, but we also have little micro changes every day, every week, every month, every year. And most of us only have a grade 5 level knowledge of what's actually happening in our body.
Which is basically what they told us when we were 14, right?
Yes, yeah. And it was taught to us from the concept of let's not get you pregnant.
Yes, not like let's understand what's actually happening in your body and how we can understand and listen to our body. And then also when we do have symptoms, they cap it with another thing. I'm like, wait, it's
Exactly.
totally
Yeah.
fine to have symptoms. And how do we like live with these symptoms? How do we understand these symptoms? And what are these symptoms telling us?
Telling us. That's exactly it. And so like I believe that there's a time and a place for our medical system. It is absolutely necessary. But I also believe that as women, we have a personal responsibility to know what we need to know about our bodies. And unfortunately, unless you know what questions to ask, the information isn't readily available. And so it was when I was presented with that choice of being 14 or being 50 that I decided I'm going to take a totally different direction. This is no longer acceptable to me. At that point, it had been 16 years that I had been struggling and that I had been dismissed and disregarded and ignored. And I just said, there's got to be a better way. It can't always look like this. This can't be my life. And I did think that was the trajectory of my life because my mom has hormonal issues, my sister has hormonal issues, it's in the family, and it was so common amongst all the women that I spoke to that I honestly thought that, well, this is what my life looks like, so I'll just keep walking this path until I hit that point. And I said, there's no way, I just can't accept this any longer. Especially when you're dealing with menstrual issues specifically. That's every month for the rest of your menstruating life. So I was looking at, 400 or 500 more periods to endure for the rest of my life. And I thought, there's no way I can do that. I can't do it. So I decided then and there, I am going to take different action and I'm going to learn what I need to do in order to change that. And so I went and studied and I took the courses and the certifications and all of that. And I implemented it.
Sure.
And I live like symptom-free, medication-free, confident, happy, comfortable. Like this was not something that I believed was possible for me, even with medication, because even when I was taking medication, I never felt this good. There was always a trade-off. And so it has inspired me to want to help other women experience the same thing, at the very least for them to understand what their hormones are doing, how it impacts them, how that changes on a day-to-day basis, and how you can actually optimize that experience so that you feel good all the time.
Yes. I love it. I love it. So kind of like, let's step back a little bit. So when you're working, with your clients, women in general, what are some of those first key things that a woman should be looking at to pay attention to when they're first starting to kind of like really, I mean, we know we all have symptoms, right? But like, how do we start navigating those first couple of things to like kind of get started in this phase?
I love that. Okay. So what I always love to tell women is that the health of your menstrual cycle indicates the health of almost every other system in your body. So if you're not taking hormonal birth control, you should be tracking your period every month and every symptom or a mood or discomfort that you feel every day, because that is going to develop a pattern into what hormones during different times of your cycle could be A, out of balance, or B, need tweaking for you to support.
Okay, so how long do you feel they should be tracking? So like
minimum 3 months.
Okay.
But I always say like the longer the better. When I finally had a doctor who was willing to listen to me, at that point, I had over 10 years worth of tracking.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
Yeah, and I track on my phone. Like it's just an app. It's nothing special. It's a free app that I literally now have 20 years worth of menstrual tracking data on there. And so as soon as you can start tracking your symptoms, it is easier to find patterns to help indicate where something might be different.
Okay. So what kind of things would, if say someone has been tracking, let's just say 3 months, and they were
Okay.
putting their symptoms. What app do you kind of recommend? What do you use? Flow
I'm
or
using,
whatever?
yeah, no, actually it's not.
Okay.
This one's just called My Calendar. And it's like a little pink book with a flower on it.
Oh.
Looks like that one right
Oh,
there.
okay. It's called Calendar?
Yeah, my calendar, or my period calendar, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But Flow is a really great one too. And Flow is really great because it actually gives insight into what your symptoms could mean.
Okay.
There's a lot on the community blog space
Oh,
on that app that can help support you.
okay. So now that we've got the app, we've kind of been tracking for 3 months. At this point, what things should we be looking for once we kind of have an overall view? Let's just say that 90-day mark. What should we be?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So if your period seems normal for you, meaning it's regular, it's consistent, it's not entirely, it doesn't cripple you every month, like you're not on the couch for days, you're not having super heavy bleeding. If all of that seems manageable, then we want to start looking at other symptoms. What does your PMS look like? Are you extremely moody in the week before your period starts? Do you have extreme brain fog where you're really struggling to think clearly or really follow through on anything that you have planned for that day? If you struggle to actually implement anything, that could indicate too. But then even also things like you may have joint pain, muscle pain, you may be really, really tired. And one of the biggest ones I see for women is that our hair either starts falling out or it starts getting really thin and dry. And that's a really big indicator for most women that we need to pay attention to what our hormones are telling us.
Wow. Okay. So a lot of things to kind of be paying attention to. But if we are tracking and we are kind of normal, what other things I'm hearing you say those other things could be popping up as would you call it a red flag? What would you kind of like label it as?
Yeah, so what I call those are secondary
Secondary
symptoms.
symptoms. Okay.
Yeah, because basically they're the warning signs that would say to us like, "Oh, like I don't like something about my body," right? A lot of them would be almost vanity, right? So our hair, our weight, our skin, our nails. Those are sort of those vanity ones that pop up for a lot of women that actually tell us or that actually change the way we think about what our body's telling us and be like, "Ooh, I need to pay attention." Whereas things like fatigue, body pain, low energy, some mood swings, some of that we just accept as normal, especially as moms, because we're like, "Oh, I'm aging. I've kicked out a couple of kids. I'm still being woken up by my kids at night. I'm not sleeping well." Those are things that we associate as being normal, as being part of a mom. And so we overlook the importance of those. But those to me are the primary symptoms. Those are the ones that if as soon as you're feeling any of those, that is your body's warning sign, like big flashing lights, you've got something going on. If you reach the point where your hair, skin, nails, or weight are being influenced or changing, you have missed those major warning signs and you're now in secondary symptoms where your body is now actually relying on internal nutrients that it has stored up that are now depleting in order to get you through your day to day.
Okay, so now we've gone through 3 months. We've, got a couple of things to look at. We've got, the big symptoms. We've got secondary symptoms. Now, at what point can we start making some adjustments? Like, what are the next kind of steps here?
Yeah, so the next steps are really understanding what hormones for you specifically might be out of balance. Because for a lot of us, when women think of hormones, we only think of our menstrual cycle. And that's actually only a small subset of hormones that we have to deal with as women. um, yeah. And so then we have to start questioning which hormones could be out of balance. And so that could be anything from our estrogen and progesterone, so our menstrual sex hormones, but it could also be our secondary sex hormones like testosterone. It could be our cortisol levels. It could be our serotonin and our dopamine or our melatonin for sleep. There's a lot of different hormones that could be out of whack. And so oftentimes what I see is women are so overwhelmed with everything that they're dealing with that they don't necessarily know where to stop the wheel to make change.
Yeah.
right? So we know we should be eating cleaner. We know we should be moving our body better. We should be getting better sleep. We should be lowering our stress. But when all of this feels like it's in a vicious cycle, where do you stop it? And so for a lot of women, that's the sticking point, is like, how do I make this work for me?
Mhm.
And I think it really comes down to basics. For one, like, just clean up the way you're eating. If you can add more, I know like you're gonna laugh about this because we just talked about this, but like, if you can add more whole real foods to your plate, that's going to make a significant difference right there. Not only is it going to energize you, help fix your metabolism, but it's also going to cleanse out your detox systems where your hormones get clogged up and backed up. So like our digestive system, our liver, our adrenals. So if we're adding lots of fresh, healthy food, we're actually putting that spoke in the wheel to stop it spinning, so you can get a handle on the symptoms you're dealing with.
That's so good. That's so good. And I think so. If I love how you mentioned clean up the food, like just clean
Big
up the
deal.
food, like that.
Well, how I like to look at that is that we so I actually coach with the motto one bite at a time. And this is because oftentimes for us, nutrition feels really overwhelming. There's a lot of information out there, but also because most of us are presented with the opportunity to eat like 3 to 6 times a day. So, as opposed to fitness where like you do maybe 1 or 2 things a day and like you're done for the day, you don't have to think about it again. But food is literally
All day.
constantly always in the
Yes.
face, always
Yes.
there, right? And it doesn't matter where you are, at work, at home, out on the go, like there's always food available and in your face. And so I like to say, like, let's take it one bite at a time instead of looking at your whole nutrition for the whole day and the whole week and the whole month and the whole year. And it's so
Yes.
overwhelming that it's like you don't know where to start. What can you eat right here, right now, that's going to fuel your body? What's on the end of your fork right now? And so when we look at it from that perspective, A, it's not as overwhelming, but B, it's also a lot more easier for us to add more of the good whole foods that are going to help cleanse our body so that we can, maybe the third out of your 6 meals today isn't as hormone friendly, isn't as cleansing. Well, you know what? 5 out of 6 of them were. So right there, you're a step ahead, right?
Yeah.
And so I love looking at it from that perspective of just breaking it down right to the simplest action step of what is on your fork right now, and is it helping you get closer to your goal?
Yeah. So as someone has done the 3 months, I know I keep repeating this, but they've done the 3 months of tracking. They start looking at, phase 1 of symptoms, phase 2 of symptoms. They start cleaning up their eating regimen. Where would they be at, and how do they know that they're progressing?
Yeah, okay, I love that question. So oftentimes what you'll start to notice, things towards the end of, I would say it takes at least 3 months to start noticing some really significant differences. In the first 30 days, you're going to start to notice your skin feels like tighter and firmer. You're losing that water weight. You're having more energy. You might be sleeping better, or you have less food cravings. And towards the end of those 3 months, if you're being consistent, those vanity components are going to start to improve. So the new hair growth is going to be lusher, shinier, thicker, more colorful. You'll have less grays even. And then even things like any fine lines or wrinkles that you may have been developing start to smoothen out. Your skin may clear up if you were dealing with acne. Weight becomes easier to manage. And so it's a progressive component of your health, of just being consistent in taking those action steps. And so yeah, after those 3 months, those are kind of those metrics I would look for to make sure that what you're doing is working.
So if someone, question, so if someone has been, like, I know you mentioned a couple different things that you were diagnosed with personally. If someone had been diagnosed, got put on, medications, and they're wanting to really find that more holistic, like, version, like, I want to get away from being on medication. I want to get away from like doing these things and having that be like a crutch, and like really embodying that, like, as you mentioned, I'm laughing at my kids. It's raining outside and they're all outside right now. Because
Oh, I love
out
it.
my window and they're all I'm like, there's something that was moving and I'm like, what's going on? Anyway, so when you think through someone that's been on medications or maybe for a couple of years and they're wanting to really shift that and go into this more, like as you said, like you're a holistic coach. Like I do that same thing. Like I want you to learn, right? You need to learn about your
Yes.
body. Because it's easy to follow a to-do list, but man, once you start to really understand what your body's saying
Yes.
and speaking to you,
Yes.
oh, you're
It's a world of difference.
I
It's
know.
incredible.
Yeah. So when if someone's in that journey of like, hey, I want to transition out of being on medication, do you have anything that maybe they could be thinking about? Or I don't know if I don't remember if you said you were on medication and then transitioned off. I don't remember what your story was, but I don't know.
Yes. Yes, yes. So that's a quite common journey for a lot of women who kind of hit a stopping point or they get tired of the band-aid solution of the medication because there's always a trade-off, right? If you're treating one symptom, you're going to express another one. Because medications don't treat root cause. They really just kind of deal with the symptoms that you complained about to your doctor. So there could be, and there could be 100 other symptoms you experienced that you didn't tell your doctor about because they didn't seem relevant,
Yes.
but are actually related.
Yes.
And so what I always say to women who want to start that transition is, first of all, you need to have the conversation with your medical practitioner and your healthcare team that you're all on the same page about it, and how to do that safely for you and your body and the symptoms you struggle with. But then also is understanding that it will take time after you come off medication for your body to naturally regulate. And this is where a lot of women are really underinformed. And it's the fact that our hormones actually take 10 years to naturally regulate, which is a significant amount of time when we look at most of us starting our periods early teens and being put on birth control right away. It means that when we're coming off of birth control or hormone medications, our body has never actually naturally regulated itself. And so it takes time for all of that to undo and for things to start to regulate on their own.
Wow.
And so there is, of course, ways you can help improve the natural regulation of your menstrual cycle, but also all your other hormones, so that you can speed up the process a little bit. But of course, it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes dedication, it takes knowing what steps to do based on where you're at. It takes having a proper coach in order to get you there, because it's not something that you want to just trial and error.
No.
That was what I did. I was like, oh, let's just see what I can do and see what happens, because I didn't have, like, when I started this journey for myself, there weren't the kinds of resources available like what there is now. And so I really was just like, let's trial and error and see what happens. And it was a month to month basis of like, okay, let's check back in with my symptoms from last month. What did I do? What can I change? How will it impact me? And that's a really long process for no reason.
Yeah.
Like it is worth the investment of having somebody be like, this is where you're at. This is where you need to be.
Yeah.
These are the steps in the middle, and let's take you there. That's the reason why we all use a GPS when we're on the road trip.
Yeah, it's so much easier, right? Like follow someone that's been through the process, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So coming off of medication, if that's something any of you are intending on doing, it is a process and it's a journey, and it's something that you need to be committed to, because there is always going to be work involved in doing that. But if you understand how the work is to be followed, then it actually becomes very simple. And that's something that I teach in my practice, is how to make it sustainable for life for you at all stages. Because I'd love to work with you for life, obviously.
I know.
But I want you to be empowered to have the ability to manage your own health and to be, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but really empowered, because there isn't this kind of knowledge. Like, we're not taught this kind of basic knowledge about our health and our bodies and our hormones and the way they work together. So to have that empowerment allows you to make informed decisions about your health as you age, as your body changes, as you go through different life stages. And it actually allows you to manage your day-to-day better and more efficiently because you're working with your body instead of against it.
Oh my gosh, I totally have to agree. I mean, there's been a lot of, I think I've seen a huge shift in especially women's health, and being in the fitness and nutrition industry for a long time. I've seen a huge shift in concern to like millennial women, and I feel like after doing some research and watching a lot of the things that have changed culturally since we were, 8 to 10, right? Like our food changing, there's a lot of things that has changed since, the 80s. And it's so funny because I still think like 80s is like 20 years ago, and it's not.
Oh, I know.
Like, oh, it's
same
not.
here, same.
But looking back, like I feel a lot of us are very much more in tuned with, hey, I want to take care of my body. I want something different. Like we're experiencing that I feel our parents didn't experience. And I also feel that we are looking for answers and ways in order to help make sure our children are not set up the same way, that with the same symptoms and experiences. And does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it really
Yes.
is like, how can I heal myself? What am I learning about myself? What things am I learning that I need to make sure like I'm setting my kids up for, so that they don't go through these same experiences that I'm experiencing.
And sorry, I'm just going to input you there, because when I learned this, my mind was blown. And I think that this is something that every woman needs to hear. When a child is born, there were studies that showed that there are tens of thousands of chemicals in the umbilical blood of newborns. And so what this means is that these are transferring across the placenta from mother's body into baby's body. Now, the reason that's important is because chemicals, toxins, and various components in our health actually change our genetics. And so when we think about the fact that when we are pregnant with a daughter, we're actually carrying 3 levels of DNA, ours, hers, and she has all the eggs she's ever going to have in her ovaries while you're carrying her. So the reason that's important is because any choices you make today impact your grandchildren's health and genetics. That is mind-blowing. And right? Yeah. Like it's insane. And so when we think about how impactful every choice we make is today and every day, before and after, it's absolutely incredible. Like we honestly, I know, right? Like
so much pressure, but so much pressure.
There is, but at this, like we have that personal responsibility to be like, what can I do to improve my health, her health, and her baby's health?
It goes generations. It goes generations.
It does. It really does. Yeah. And so it's absolutely incredible. And while there is a lot of, it sounds scary because there is a lot of pressure on it.
It is, yeah.
But that's also really rewarding. When we come at it from the other side of that lens, like I can impact not just my health, but the health of my unborn grandchildren. That is wild. That is incredible. So, what kind of future are we creating for ourselves, for our children, and for their children by implementing small, basic health habit changes in our lifestyle today?
I love it. Absolutely love it. So much alignment here. And I know like the very first Zoom we had together, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to like have a conversation, because there's so many things that I know, like you believe, that I believe, that I coach on, that you coach on. Like we have so much in alignment. And I just thank you for being here, being part of our community, or fit community. I've already had a couple of the women be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to come back and listen to this. And so I'm also going to email this out to my fit letter. And so I'm excited to share, and so thankful that you were able to share your story and just how you're impacting women and generations too. So how can they find you? What's your, Instagram and all that? And I'll also put it in the, I say show notes.
Yes.
I'm not a podcast, but you know what I mean.
I know. Yes. I use the same word. And then I'm like, oh wait, I'm not. Yes, no. Okay, yes. So I'm on Facebook here, and then I'm also on Instagram at Nutritionist Jenn J. So like you said, like you'll link it,
Yeah.
so you guys can find me, or you ladies, sorry, can find me there. And yeah, so I think the biggest thing, if I just had to like sum it all up in one word, is that you have a lot of options, and the more knowledge you have about your body, the better informed decisions you can make, so that you have options that you can implement, and it makes a world of a difference. I would have never believed I could be where I am today, living the life that I do with a healthy child when I thought pregnancy wasn't even possible, and symptom free. And it is the most freeing and exciting experience that I could have ever asked for in my lifetime. So
I love it.
if you're on the fence about, what you're dealing with, or the symptoms you might be having, or you already think it's hormonally based, like I'm always open to conversation, to helping you look in the right direction to really help you get, the support you need.
That's so awesome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon.